Okay, right, sitting down, being quiet. Do you want to know why you got shin splints?
Action.
That's all I want to go do.
Right. What do you owe us? And
They're not here today.
I thought I could see that they were not here today.
For every one they make, each get an extra brownie. Yes.
Arena has an excellent idea.
And my sister ate them.
Your sister ate them.
Yeah, man. I
Yeah, but then you can say
I break them and then not put it in here.
yeah, like.
You know, I put it here again.
Oh, yeah.
So it's the same thing you're not getting today.
What?
No, it's the same thing. You see?
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to sit anywhere near each other from now. Ever. In my lifetime. I don't know, last week he hit you with testes.
I really don't have
I would want to hear him how to do it. Hey, right, we're ready.
We need to go sit next to people.
Brownies. Okay. Teresa, is it okay if I record this? Okay. And Puppet, here's your mark. Okay. Right, let's go through this, guys. Okay. Alright, lots and lots of important stuff here, because there's lots of stuff that goes across sections that you guys are doing incorrectly. Okay, so the comments that I'm going to make here are general comments for all sections, most of them. Okay, first of all, you use the word amount incorrectly. And so from now on in my life, you will not use the word amount. Okay. If you have something that you can count and give a figure to, then you use the word number. You can also have things like mass or volume, etc., etc. But the word amount, Over your nose, love. Okay, so in general, you may not use the rude A word. Not to be confused with the rude Q word. Okay, so in this context, the word that you should have used was the word amount. I mean, sorry.
Isn't that brownies for me now?
No, there's no brownies involved here. You think I haven't learned?
Hmm? You already gave us our brownies.
I know, but I've just said the A word.
But you've already given them to us from lunch. But that was
No, but that was for the
Q
A, that was for the Q word.
Okay.
Okay, but there weren't brownies involved in the rude A word. Now on there will be though. Okay, all right. Please use bullet points when asked to list or give a number of points. And we want you to do this in bio. We want you to do it in prac exams. We want you to do it in theory exams. We want you to do it in everything in bio. And there's a very good reason for it. Because what you do is you launch into where we said to you, give 3 points. You launch into it, and then you get carried away, and you discuss one of the points too much, and you forget to do the other 2 points. Or you put so much stuff into that first point. Remember, I'm only allowed if you're told to list 3 things. We only mark the first 3. So if you put a whole lot of irrelevant stuff into the first one, and we mark 2 extra points there, and then you put 2 really good points, we're not allowed to mark them. Because we've already put 3 points of marking, even if 2 of them are crosses in the first part. I hope you understand what I'm saying to you. And so, to prevent you doing that, please give me 3 bullets and discuss 3 bulleted points. And we really, really, really encourage you to do that in life sciences. Okay. All right. Please don't repeat the question. I know that they ask you to do that in English and science or something. But I think that that's because those teachers have got no work to do. And so they're quite happy to have all this gov. Okay, we don't want the gov. We just want the answer. So please don't repeat the answer. And it's one of the reasons why I only give you so few lines, is to try and train you to be concise. And one of the things with being concise is that you don't repeat the question. Okay, because then I've got to read through it. Okay, but this is a general biology thing. We don't want a question repeated. I don't know why the other subjects do. Okay, don't use personal pronouns. I wasn't doing that investigation. And yet you guys had screeds of times when you wrote, you must this, you must that, you must do the next thing. So I don't know why I needed to do all that. Okay. We need to talk about the fact that when I said to you, why is the mark recapture method a good method to use for counting fish? And why is it not good to use a direct method? One of the things that you gave me this time, and you gave it to me the previous time, was you spoke about the fact that it would be too time consuming to use a direct method. So you spoke in the quadrat method. You spoke about the fact that it would be too time consuming to count all those things. But in fact, scientists do this whole, we put in a lot of time to make sure everything is reliable and accurate, etc. If you consider time trials on new medicines, for example, they can extend for years and years before that medicine is actually released. Okay, not time trials, that's running. But anyway, trials, medical trials. So time is not an issue. Okay, right. So here, what I wanted you to do was tell me why a particular method was good for fish in a dam, whereas a direct method would not be good for fish in a dam. Okay, so let's go through it. Okay. All right. So the method you've chosen for the count is the mark recapture technique. Justify why you chose this method rather than a direct counting method. And this refers to you need to look carefully at the organism that you're counting. Okay. So it is not possible to use a direct method and count them all. The dam is large, the fish swim randomly, and so some will be counted and others will be recounted and others will not be counted at all. And it's unlikely that they will distribute evenly in the reservoir as well. Okay. Now it's terribly important that you consider this even distribution thing. You can't use the mark recapture technique on a group of organisms that doesn't distribute evenly. So if, for example, you look at lions. Lions do not go and live with other lion prides. So they will stay with their pride. Or they might wander off for a day or so to go and mark territory. But then they come back to their pride. They don't integrate with other prides. So if you've got a big game reserve that has 4 lion prides living on it, they will not integrate with members of other prides. So you cannot use the mark recapture technique on them because they don't integrate with other prides. Okay. So the mark recapture technique results in an estimate, which is possible to do in a closed system with animals that move freely and mix with each other. Okay. So that's basically what I wanted here. I didn't want reasons why you think that a direct method is too time consuming. Okay. List 3 facts, only one of which may be related to the method of marking used, that should be taken into account when doing this count to ensure that the results are as accurate as possible. So again, please bullet the correct number of points. And some of you lost marks unnecessarily because you used more than one that related to the method of marking used. So remember that the system must be closed, no immigration or emigration, no births and deaths. The chance of an animal being captured may not change due to age or experience. And the animals in the samples are able to move freely, mix freely with the general population after sampling. That is critical. Okay, I'll put the marks for the table somewhere else. Okay. Choose a good method of marking and list 4 factors that should be taken into account when choosing a method of marking organisms. So bullet the correct number of points. Take note of the question. Many of you lost marks unnecessarily because you gave points that weren't related to marking. So a good method of marking would be to clip a small notch in the membrane of one of the fins. And then remember, the marking mustn't affect the animal either negatively or positively. It mustn't wear off between counts. It must not prevent the individual from mixing with the rest of the population. And the marking mustn't make the individual more obvious to predators. Okay. Suitable time period, I would say 2 days, but I was okay with anything reasonable. Please don't give a range. Don't say 2 to 3 days. You can never tell a scientist 2 to 3 days. That's just vague. Okay, so settle on an actual figure. All right, there's a reasonable table. So a heading, and the heading must be complete. You had to include the number in the first sample. And guys, did you all underline every time you wrote the genus name? Okay. Then the 3 samples that you did for sample 2, and the number marked within sample 2. Do not put decimal points or decimal places in these figures, because you only counted whole things, other than the child who had a half a fish. And averages, then you can put a decimal place. Okay. All right, then let's have a look at your actual calculation. Because remember, it's got to say exactly what's in the table, Haley.
Yeah. No, I know. I just, because we read such a long heading, I just wanted to get like a shorter one that we can use.
Okay. All right, so remember, if you put a formula, you can't use abbreviations. You've got to give a key. Okay? If you're going to use abbreviations, if it's a very long formula. So there's a mark for is your formula correct, and 2 marks for whether you put a key. Then you had to plug in all the figures, and round it off, because it is a whole fish, not a third of the fish. Then you had to count them and see whether your estimate was accurate or not. Okay. Then you know I can't add, so please count all your ticks. Check that my addition is correct.
No. So for example, we have to learn like all of the information in the formula. So we have to learn like all of the information in the formula to give the key.
Yes. Yes. After that you learn the whole, you know, the whole formula.
And this one is just, I thought of it more as the bean fish.
That's why I said that you needed to do after.
Yeah, I do.
And when I did the lesson, I said you must. Okay, everybody happy about added everybody's correctly? Okay, I'm fine with that. You can't say very challenging because that's vague. And you can't say almost impossible because that's vague. Okay, so I will let you to put some specific in it. It will be fine as long as you said the thing. So that you use it the other way around. You see this format and potential damage to the fish.
Yes, if
So
we
you've
have to
got,
catch you, so the ones count it.
got the mark for each opposite word using that.
But I mean it that way because if you have to catch it.
Okay, now I'm going to take that one away and put it there. Because the only thing that you've done here is giving the argument of the and so you can't use it on both sides. You can't say lots of this format.
Oh.
Okay. You need to say the reasons why it's a good thing to do this and why it's not a good thing to do that. Okay. Right, we're ready.
Can you move back now?
No, because you're not keeping this.
Ma'am, why are we allowed to take pictures of these?
Because it's something that I will use again next year. Okay. All right. Okay. Right, we need to have a very serious talk here. Come on.